Good evening and welcome to 15 Minutes with Longevity. I'm Giselle Wertheim-Ames and I'm your host for this evening. Today, instead of being in our studio as we normally are, we are at the lovely Level 4, which is at 54 and Bath Hotel in Rosebank. Joining me today is Lizette Jooste, who is a registered dietitian with EOH Health, and Gidon Novic, who is the CEO of Discovery Health and Vitality. And we're going to look at what smart eating habits an executive should adopt when he or she is in a restaurant. So welcome, thank you for joining me, and I look forward to spending the meal with you. First of all, Lizette, I'm going to ask you, it's always a challenge, I think, busy executives to find the balance between eating correctly and then the social pressures of being an executive and doing the business deals and having that whole hobnobbing going over lunch. What is your advice to a busy executive with regard to eating plans?
Thanks, Giselle. I'd always say that it is very individualized, of course, and at the end of the day you have to enjoy your meal that you're going to have. A well-balanced meal, making sure that you get enough variety in your diet. I think some of us becomes very, not boring, but a little bit monotonous in the type of food that we choose, and we always go for those good old favorites that you normally tend to go for. So maybe thinking a little bit out of the box and trying vegetables in a different way. Some people, especially men, are a little bit scared of trying vegetables. That is as quite a good choice to make in any restaurant. Vegetables normally don't contain the same amounts of fat as starchy food would, unless you're going for the creamed spinach. Then of course the cream in there isn't that great.
And there's a difference between lunch, obviously breakfast, a lunch or a dinner.
Yes, definitely. The old saying goes that you eat breakfast as a king and lunch as a beggar. So that definitely plays out, and especially in today's day and age, because portion sizes are completely distorted. If you go to any restaurant, for that matter of fact, at the end of the day you'll eat more than what you would have at home, and especially because you're not dishing up yourself. So you can't determine the amount of food that ends up on your plate, and the moment that it arrives at the table, you kind of feel that you have to finish it now. Or especially if you're going out with important clients and they are taking you out for a business lunch, you might feel obliged at the end of the day to whatever they've ordered for the table, let's say. So I'd say the best option is not to order for the table per se. Maybe start with a salad so that you can fill up before having a larger meal after that. I'm trying to keep it light, because you're going back to the office and you still need to be on high alert and be concentrating and focusing and working at your best pace. You don't want to have a steak and then go back and become all sluggish and then your PA finds you underneath the table at the end of the day.
Power napping is what they call it after lunch. Yes. Gidon, you're an avid runner and you are healthy. I mean, I think all the people I've ever met who work for Discovery are actually embellish or represent Discovery Health and what it stands for. But surely you also find it very challenging to find that balance as an executive, healthy eating. How do you do it?
Well, firstly, I love food. And as you were talking about business lunches, I love not only food, but I love the environment that food creates, the kind of social dynamic, engaging with people around food. So I've got to balance that against what's good for me. And I've got a lot of nutrition and nutritionists and doctors around me every day, telling me what's good for me and what's bad for me. So it's a balance really. But I think, as you said, it's important to enjoy food, but at the same time it's important to eat responsibly and just be aware. I think just having a consciousness around eating, which I have, is important, and just balancing it with the pleasure of actually eating good food.
Alcohol, it's quite a key element again of meals and of especially at night time. What is, again, how do we balance that? Because I think again that represents quite a challenge. Not just food, it's what you drink that people forget, the combination of the two.
Definitely, those empty calories in the glass that you don't end up counting or adding onto your calorie counter app when you're adding up the day's kilojoules. We always comment and recommend a good quality red wine with the polyflavonols that keeps the heart healthy, or a good old whiskey on the rocks, not with any cordials or any fizzy drinks, because the fizzy drinks normally have quite an amount of sugar hidden away in them. So those are the safest choices, so to speak. If you do want to go for something that you need to drink with a mix, at the end of the day, a dietary option or a light option like Coke Light or Sprite Zero would be a good option. Or for the ladies, a wine spritzer is always a favorite amongst others, but also quantity. So at the end of the day, enjoy the glass of wine or the 2 glasses of wine for men. Enjoy it thoroughly and don't focus so much on what you're consuming, but make sure that your energy intake in and your energy intake out matches up at the end of the day, because I think that's where a lot of people go wrong. They overindulge, so they might go to the gym in the morning and they feel that they should reward themselves. And then when they're faced with a situation where they go out to lunch and they are now presented with all these wonderful choices, they overindulge and they feel like they can reward themselves. And something that Gidon said that's very true is being aware. So experiencing your meal with all 5 of your senses and not just gobbling away to get to dessert.
Thanks. Thank you.
Okay, so there's quite a selection here. Quite a lot for you to choose from, Gidon. I have a question. Is it? I mean, it's at lunchtime. Is there again a difference between whether we're allowed to eat dessert at lunch or dinner? And what is your advice to an executive again?
Okay. I think to be on the safe side, rather have it at lunch versus dinner, because what you're going to end up doing in any case after dinner is sleep, unless you're catching up on all of those millions and trillions of emails in your inbox late at night. Obviously, the sugar and the fat content of the dessert is also quite important. Can't see the desserts on here.
A separate menu.
Is it on a
okay,
separate
well, that's
menu?
cool for that.
Okay. So typically a good choice for a dessert would be something like fruit, so a fruit pavlova kind of scenario, or maybe looking at crepes with some or other jus with berries, with the antioxidants that you get in there. But again, the sugar content is something to be aware of, and especially with you being that active, I'm sure the next morning you can just add in like another 500 meters to get rid of that sugar content at the end of the day. But for someone who...
So he's allowed the chocolate mousse.
He's definitely allowed the chocolate mousse. If he takes Rivonia from the right side up, he's definitely allowed the chocolate mousse.
But I must tell you though, you talk about sugar a lot,
Yes.
and I love sweet things and desserts and chocolatey things. But the one thing I found quite easy to take out of my diet is sugar. Firstly, sugary drinks, which is an absolute no-no. And
Yes.
I mean, you won't see a sugary drink anywhere in our office. It's a complete waste of calories and
It's
a waste
empty.
of time. Empty.
Yeah, completely.
But the other thing I found which works really well is taking sugar out of tea and coffee.
Yes.
Which sounds, when I first tried it, it tasted weird
Awful.
and bland and everything. But I think you really get used to it.
Your
So I think
palate
your
adapts.
palate
It
adapts.
does.
So, to me, like taking out those unnecessary things like sugar in tea and coffee and sugary drinks it's been a huge help.
It does. It makes a massive difference, and especially if you add up the amount of cups of tea or coffee that you have in a day.
Yeah.
So if you're running through the day and you're having 8 cups of coffee and you're adding a teaspoon of sugar in each, it's 40 grams of sugar. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but at the end of the day, it all adds up.
For sure.
So if you were going to have the chocolate mousse and the whiskey or the wine, and then adding that sugar onto it, you need to work so much harder to actually just get rid of it at the end of the day.
Okay, now I'm intrigued. Now, what are you going to have on that menu?
I tend to stick away from red meats. I mean, I do eat it, but it's I'd rather go for something lighter, particularly at lunchtime. So I'm going to try the chicken supreme.
Great.
Looks quite interesting, and I also like the fact that it comes with veggies. Which kind of complement
And Lizette, what are you going to choose on that menu?
Well, I am quite one for trying new things, so I'm going to try the beetroot tart with goat's cheese
I've had
medallions.
that.
It
Good.
sounds quite appetizing. And with it being a starter, you know that the portion is relatively small.
Now, I've seen in America, because the Americans are very obsessed now with obesity and the problems there, that in restaurants they actually have the calories. They have all the calories and the fat. Do you think that's something that's going to happen in South Africa? And does that not ruin the experience a little bit? I mean, I wonder about that sometimes, that we really are taking it to extremes now.
But
You can
I
comment,
guess it
Alcon.
could. The one thing we found at Vitality Improve, people are always making trade-offs. So if you can help people maybe make better decisions by trading off one item against another,
Yes.
it maybe may work.
And I think it's all about education as well. So if you understand what you're reading, it makes a massive difference. There's no sense in adding the nutritional analysis to the meal if nobody understands what quantity of fat is too much, or how many kilojoules should you consume and expend at the end of the day. So again, it's about educating the nation, which Vitality is doing a great job at. And I also think, like you mentioned, the trade-off, if you understand what you're putting in your mouth and at the end of the day putting into your body, you also better understand what to do with it and why you're facing the kind of situation that you may be facing. Because some people are completely oblivious to the fact that we always joke in private practice where people come and they say to you, I only eat 2 slices of bread. And then you think to yourself, really? Really? And it's what goes on top of the bread per se. But it's because people don't realize the amounts of kilojoules and energy and fat content and sodium content. That's something that's been in the news lately. And our health minister is quite concerned about as well. So those are all things. So I think you can take anything to the extreme, but I think having it there and raising awareness and making people aware that if they have a Big Mac, they need to go and run at least for 4 hours to get rid of that Big Mac.
They might not eat the whole Big Mac.
Or they might leave the crisps.
Yes.
So
Okay.
yeah,
So
that might be the trade-off at the end of the day.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you to have the last say. If you had to give an executive advice on a healthy habit, developing healthy habits, what would it be? What are the kind of mantras that you live by?
Well, I mean, I've got 4 small kids, so to me, something to be aware of is to encourage your kids from a young age to start eating right and adopting the right habits, because I think it really plays a part in your later life. I grew up, there was never Coke anywhere near our house, and it was just something that I've that's always stayed with me. So I think just being aware, particularly if you have kids, of teaching them the right eating habits and physical activity. Just making it a habit. For me, being active is a habit, and in eating healthy is a habit. So it's normal for me. But having said that, there are times when I let go and enjoy beautiful dessert. So it's just getting that balance right.
It's life. Great. Thank you so much, and I look forward to now eating lunch with you.
Great.
Thank you.
Bon appetit.
Bon appetit.